I had a chance to consult with Lonnie Johns, a couple of large church pastors, and you notice that there's several pastors who are not having services tomorrow. That's not going to be our case. Tomorrow has been declared a national day of prayer by the president, by the White House, and the house of God is the house of prayer for all people. The newscasters are sitting next to each other, and the stores are open, and the malls are open, and the shops are open, and they're asking everybody to take precaution, all right? When you come together, you know, the basic stuff you're supposed to do, wash your hands, do this and that, all that kind of stuff, don't sneeze, cover your arm, and we're asking you to do that. You see some of the hand sanitizers in the lobby and all that kind of stuff. We have to be both practical and prayerful, both pastoral and tactical, right? And I just believe that our gathering tomorrow for Sunday school and for morning worship will not be hindered by this coronavirus. And I believe that we can come together after now time. I haven't seen how things are going, scientific data, and I'm doing all the research I can do. And we get to the point to where, okay, now we have to think not panic mode, but logically, and then walk in faith and just believe God. And I just believe that you and I and us, even as we sit here today, if you don't have a real low immunity system and you're comfortable with getting out, if you've been out of the country to Europe, if you've been to on a cruise, out of the seas and out of the where, you know, this and that. I think they're asking for a self-quarantine type of situation and so on and so on and so on. But the word is relatively healthy. And if you're relatively healthy, we are the people of faith, not the people of fear. So we want to come together and be together. And there's still people in the midst of us right now. There's still people who are doubters. And there's still people who, even though they're here right now, they say, well, I don't know about tomorrow. And don't do that. If you're here now, that ought to be a good sign to you that tomorrow is fine. They were making an announcement. I watched the news this morning. They're sitting, and they got the panel on stage, and they're all sitting there together, and they're popping each other and talking to each other. And then they're talking about 6 foot of separation. And I'm saying, like, and the guy said, okay, we'll be right back. So the whole thing is we really do need to believe God and be very practical. And I think, how many of you feel good right now? You just feel good in life. You feel good about yourself. And if that's how you feel, that's what they're talking about. The last doctor that was on was just saying, you can't live your life in a bubble. Do what you need to do, but take these precautions, all right? And so I'm grateful for that, and we'll be here tomorrow. Tomorrow is the National Day of Prayer, been called a National Day of Prayer, so we'll be convening, and we will pray for those affected. We'll pray for our nation. We'll pray for the world, and then we'll hear what God would say to us about this whole thing, all right? I love you. Thank you so much for being here today. You are awesome people. Thank you. So I think I'll open in prayer and then the icebreaker. You're next. Do I need to pray first?
Good morning. Well, we're going to pray as well. So, Bishop, if you want to pray. Oh, okay. All right. At your tables, you have number. You have a number at your table that's in the center of your table. I want you at this time to count off. Start with anybody at your table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Got it? So count off. You can do that now. When you're done, raise your hand at the table if your table is done. Count. Nope. They're just one time. Because there may not be 12 people at your table. Just keep counting until you're done. 1, 2, 3. The people at your table. You have that? You understand? You sure? Okay, raise your hand if you're done. Raise your hand high. Okay, all right. So, all the ones, I need one person at each table to hold up that sheet, that number. Hold it up high. You can stand up, as a matter of fact. Stand up. You need to stretch anyway. All right, I need you to shift to the table where you have a number. If you are number 10, go to table 10. If you are number 2, go to table 2. If you're number 4, go to table 4. So you should be moving at this time. Pardon me? It's not a permanent shift. It is temporary. It's a temporary shift. It is not permanent. We are mixing and mingling this morning. Find your table based on the number that you counted off. Find your table. All the ones at the table number 1, all the 2s at table number 2, all the 3s at table number 3, all the 4s at table number 4. Do not sit, just find the table. Just go to the table. Number 8 is empty. Now I know that there's some number 8s around. Find your table if you know your number. I still see only one person at table number 8. Someone forgot their number. I can tell. Someone forgot their number. So are we all at our assigned table? If you're number 8 looking real slim over here. Who does not know that they're... I got that, but there were more people at tables than not. So he should have at least 4 or 5. All right. Okay. Table 9 only has 3 people. Table 11, 1. Tell lady leave me alone. But anyway, table 9, 10, and 11, you gather at table 9, since there are only 1 or 2 of you. That it? Okay, this morning we are going to pray for one another that we may be healed. We know what time and what season that we're in, but the people that you're at your table, you did not sit with them this morning. So I want you to introduce yourselves and let your prayer be known unto them. And we're going to pray corporately that God would just do a miracle and just touch our bodies and help us to remind us of who we are in Christ. Yes. Be sure to share your prayer requests. All right, you may begin praying. You should know each other by now. Let's pray.
Amen, amen, amen. Okay, all right. Let's reel it in, because some of you can pray all day, which is great. And you can do that later on, but right now we're on a time schedule this morning. So hopefully you met somebody new. Get back to your tables so we can go ahead and get started. I want to introduce your speakers this morning. First of all, I want to thank you for getting up and sacrificing again to take control of your finances, your health, and all that stuff as we're proceeding through this code red era here at the Potter's House. You guys are impacting others. There are other churches that are hopping on board and participating now and wanting to get their members in line with what the Word of God says to us about our finances, our health, and all those other things. So we got some speakers for you this morning. We started off with budgeting and saving and all that, laying that foundation. And in the last workshop, we talked about, what we talked about last week? Yeah, windfalls. What are you doing? Investments and why, we should be prepared for windfalls and things like that. And we thank God for Pastor Glenn. He's here this morning for sharing with us and Minister JC. So we have some dynamic speakers for you again this morning. I want to do a brief introduction to them for you. First, we have Attorney Stephen A. Smith. Attorney Smith, if you can raise your hand, where is he? Around here somewhere. He'll be talking to us about wills and power of attorneys and things of that nature. Attorney Smith attended Stanton Preparatory School here in Jacksonville. He's a graduate of Florida State University in Tallahassee. He is a member of all kinds of law associations. He was admitted to the Florida Bar in August 2010. He also was president of the D.W. Perkins Bar Association. He's a member of the Jacksonville Justice Association, the Florida Association, National Bar Association, and on and on and on and on and on. He is a minister of the gospel. More importantly, he serves as the pastor of Hepzibah Bar Evangelistic Pentecostal Church located on the north side. He's a sought-after public speaker and mentor of at-risk youth in the community. His personal testimony unlocks the door to so many others to get set free. He's married to Alexandria Smith, and he resides on Jacksonville North Side with his lovely daughter, Aaliyah. Okay, so he will be coming up, not now, but I'm going to introduce everybody. He'll be talking to us about wills and having your proper legal documents in order. So many of us don't do that. And then we're going to have Peter Hager. Peter, we love Peter. Peter is just an awesome man of God. Peter will be talking to us about disability insurance. He is a 20-year representative of AFLAC. He's been here with us at the Potter's House, being our rep for about 12 years now. Peter has his LETCF, which is a certified enroller into the AFLAC plans. Peter has the distinction of being number 30 of all of AFLAC's 36,000 agents. He is considered the top 30. He is number 30. So Peter's a born-again Christian. He has a passion for what he does. He sees what he does as ministry, where God uses him to pray for his clients and just really talk to them from the heart and not from the dollar. He doesn't sell insurance for $1. He's selling insurance because that's what God has raised him up to do. And so we really thank God for Peter. He's a graduate of UNF and has a lovely wife of 32 years, and they have 2 children. So we thank God for Peter. He'll be talking to you about various types of additional incidental type of insurances. And then, of course, we'll have JC St. Floyd. JC was with us last seminar, and he's a financial planner. He's an insurance rep. He'll be talking to you about life products and health products and things of that nature. He's a youth minister of the gospel. He serves here faithfully at our church. He and his wife Jennifer and their 3 lovely kids. We thank God for him, and he will be coming on talking to us today as well. Okay. Now, unfortunately, we will not be able to get in depth about any one of these subjects, especially the legal subjects. We will have an open question and answer section after each one of these. However, this will not be a time for you to get detailed information on, now, what do I need to do and how do I need to do that? You will get the basics of each one of them. Now, they will be available, of course, later on. They'll give you their cards, so information and stuff of that nature. And Attorney Stephen, of course, you'll be able to contact him later if you need any type of legal advice. We're not, don't be holding us hostage and say, you referred me to them, okay? We're just giving you some, but there are all kinds of great attorneys. Do your homework. They're great financial planners. Do your homework. We're just saying that these are people that we have trusted over the years, but you feel free to do your research. We just want you to get the information, okay? So that's what we're going to do today. Now, some of you come into this mindset really deep, and you probably think, well, why do we need insurance and why do we need legal rep? God is my lawyer. He's my judge, and he's all about that, don't y'all? He's going to be my lawyer in the courtroom. Yes, he is. And he's going to use somebody to represent you. And then y'all say, I don't need insurance. I'm believing God that he's just going to rapture me. And I've talked to pastors who say stupid stuff like that. God going to rapture me. I don't need no burial insurance. And you're going to be like that poor widow in 2 Kings who was so broke when her preacher husband died. They took her boys, to be servants. And so we want to get out of that mindset. You are called to be stewards. You're called to be good stewards over what God has given you. And so in that, being a good steward, you have to use wisdom. And wisdom tells us to take care of our household. There's a verse in Proverbs that says, Proverbs 27 says, the prudent sees danger and he takes refuge, but the simple keeps going and pays the penalty for it. Okay? So you need to look ahead, and you know that danger is out there. You know that stuff happens. It's going to happen to all of us. None of us are exempt. I don't care how deep you are. Stuff happens. Were you prepared? Wisdom says be prepared. And as good stewards, when it comes to insurance and stuff of that nature, most of us don't own the stuff that we don't want to get insured. You don't own that house. You got a loan. It's being loaned to you. The car as well. It's been loaned to you. So you're supposed to be taking care of those people's property, but you don't have insurance on it. So now when something happens, what do? You panic. You go into panic mode. Or you want to come to the church. But no, there's remedies for that too. Because, Jesus said, you take care of the dead. Y'all let y'all other relatives and unsaved folk take care of that. You do my business. You do what I told you to do. And so it's just wisdom in being prepared with the proper insurance and all of these types of things, okay? So that is why we're having these workshops. I think I have a lot of faith. And I have faith to believe that if I have an accident with anything, it's going to be taken care of. I just had Bishop had an accident in my car. Bless his heart. Shortly after I got it painted, like 3-4 days after I got it painted. And I didn't even have to pay the deductible. God was so gracious to me. The insurance company paid for everything, and then the people who fixed it say, don't even worry about the deductible. We're just going to take care of it. Okay? Now, if I didn't have insurance, that was like $2,400 worth of damage. How many of you got $2,400 just laying around? Fear of you. And if you do have it, you don't want to have to spend it out of your pocket. Okay, so they're going to give us some wise advice this morning. Okay, so first up, we will have Attorney Stephen A. Smith. All right, he's going to talk to us about wills and powers of attorney. Coming up, you can go all the way up on stage.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Clap your hands for Lady Narlene. With this wonderful vision for Code Red, culture of debt elimination, and certainly these things that are necessary in the house of God. Amen. Giving honor to Spirit of Christ who's head of my life. Amen. To the pastor of this house, Bishop Vaughn McLaughlin. Amen. And Lady Narlene, to all of you in your respective places, all God's children. Just want to go through this a little bit. I won't be able to go through the depths of it. Of course, with everything, there's certainly a admonition that comes along with it. If you could keep me on a confidence monitor, keep me up on a confidence monitor there, Aaron, in the back. All right. On the screen, confidence monitor. I want my presentation there. There you go. All right. Thank you. All right. Appreciate it. I didn't bring my iPad up. All right. So, so with everything, there's disclaimers when you deal with lawyers. First, I must say that this is not legal advice. It's not intended to be legal advice. This is informational only. This does not establish a legal relationship between you and I. Okay, so I don't owe you a duty. So that if I do breach that duty, you can't come after me. Okay, all right. The way we establish that is you come into the office, you pay what's called a retainer fee, and then that retainer fee goes into my account, and then I start working for you. All right. I just have to give that disclaimer. All right. Then services will be rendered. This is for informational purposes only, and I appreciate God for the opportunity. We'll move through here. This is just a little background that she talked to you about. This is a presentation outline, what we'll go through: wills, probate, power of attorney, advanced healthcare directives, living wills, final expense planning, and questions at the time appointed already. And certainly this presentation is limited to the state of Florida. I am licensed and barred to practice in the state of Florida, not any other state. They have different laws in different states, so just that as well. Why do you need these documents? You need these documents to control the what-ifs. Proverbs 19:20 says, "Hear counsel and receive instruction, that thou mayest be wise in thy latter end." That in the end, you will show that you've used wisdom when you've heard the counsel, received the instruction, obeyed it, and then you will see that you've used wisdom then. Another place, Jesus himself said, wisdom is justified of her children. And so those things that it produces, you will find that you have utilized wisdom in your forethought, in all the protections you've taken. And so that's why you need the documents here. As to wills, last will and testament. What is a will? It's a written direction controlling the disposition of property at death. So the laws of each state will set the formal requirements for a legal will. Okay, so there's formal requirements for a legal will, particularly in the state of Florida as well. In Florida, you, the maker of the will, is called a testator, must be at least 18 years old. You must be of sound mind at the time you sign your will. It means you can't, you have to be lucid, if you will, and there are people who have temporary moments of lucidity, particularly when you have elderly and others who may have certain issues. If they are in that state of lucidity and in their right mind, understanding the bounds of their property and things of that nature, they're able to form testamentary intent. And those will be upheld, particularly if the witnesses are there who are able to attest to it. So your will must be written, your will must be witnessed and notarized in the special manner provided for by the law of wills. It's necessary for you to follow exactly the formalities required for the execution of a will. And so to be effective, your will must be proved in and allowed by the probate court. And so it means that someone's going to go over that will afterwards, not just to see what you said, but to see whether or not you followed all of those things that are required by law. So when does your will go into effect? Of course, there's a Bible scripture that says, except there be the death of the testator, it's of no effect. And so that covenant is of no effect at that time. So no will becomes final until the death of the testator, the person who wrote the will. And it may be changed or added to by the testator by drawing a new will or by a codicil or an addendum to that with the same formalities that are required for a will. A will's terms cannot be changed by writing something in or crossing something out, as some people believe. You cannot do that. In fact, you may invalidate part or the whole part of your will by crossing it out. Okay? That's why when you get your will, you do your will, you put it in a safe place, or leave it with your attorney or someone else to be able to bring it out, from under the mattress or behind the wall, wherever you leave your private effects, if you will. You cannot change it that way by crossing it out. You have to do an addendum, a codicil, or you have to go ahead and do a new will altogether. What can be accomplished by a will? You decide who gets the property instead of the law making the choice for you. Number two, you may name the personal representative or the executor. We call it personal representative in the state of Florida. Other states, they call it executor of your will as you choose, provided the one named can qualify under Florida law. There are certainly laws as to who can qualify. If you have a felony, you're out. Different things like that that come up. A personal representative is one who manages an estate, and maybe either an individual or a bank or a trust company, subject to certain limitations. A trust may be created in a will whereby the estate or a portion of the estate will be kept intact with income distributed or accumulated for the benefit of members of the family or others. And so trust is another document or vehicle that you're able to create that you can have a pour-over will and pour over into your trust so it can be administered by a trustee. And so that's another thing that we're not going to go through today, but of course is part of the estate planning process. Minors may be cared for without the expense of proceedings for guardianship of property because those are separate cases that you have. You have a probate case, you have a guardianship case that deals with the property and the person of the children, and those are filing costs and filing fees. That's having an attorney that's necessary in these cases, and so that's a lot of money that starts to rack up if you don't do estate planning. Real estate and other assets may be sold without court proceedings if your will adequately authorizes it. You may make gifts effective at or after your death to charity or to your church. Amen. All right. And really that's how many churches are able to thrive, not just survive, but thrive, is because of estate planning. People have properly planned, and they knew in their life they gave their all, or gave their time, talent, and treasure to the church. They want the church to continue in perpetuity. And how you do that? Estate planning. And certainly, I believe we'll hear more about that as well. You may you decide who bears any tax burden rather than the law making that decision. And a guardian may be named for your minor children, which is another issue that comes up. Of course, that's subject to certain laws, family laws, et cetera. You can't say, I don't want my husband or my baby's father to have the child once I pass, and think that that's going to supersede the natural law, that says that a father or mother has the absolute right to raise their child, subject to the best interest of the children, all right? So what happens when there's no will? When there's no will, the court appoints a personal representative. And there's a certain guideline for that, who comes first in that line and that lineage for it. Certainly known or unknown to you, that they may manage your estate. The cost of probating may be greater than if you had planned for your estate with a will, and the administration of your estate may be subject to greater court supervision. And so for every step you take, you may have to require court approval, which slows down the process for things that are needed and things like that. If you just spell it out in your will, you don't have to go through all that process and red tape to make sure that it is in the best interest of the beneficiaries, et cetera, which the court would do. May a person dispose of his or her property in any way he or she wishes by will? Well, while any sort of property may be transferred by will, there are some particular interests in property which cannot be willed because the right of the owner terminates automatically upon his or her death, or others have been granted rights in the property by Florida law. Some examples of those property rights and interests are like homestead. And so it speaks to the homestead exemption that you have that passes immediately upon death to those if it's owned by a person who is survived by a spouse or a minor child, then it gives a life estate to the property owned for the life of the owner, and then any property that's owned jointly with any other person with the right of survivorship, like tenants by the entireties, which is limited to joint ownership between a husband and wife, would be one of those. So a person may not be disinherited. You may not disinherit your spouse without, no, you can't do that, without a properly executed marital agreement. See, that's another thing, what we call premarital agreements and things of that nature. So that's handled before you get married. So that's part of your process of of marital counseling, et cetera. The law gives a surviving spouse a choice to take either his or her share under the will or a portion of the decedent's property determined under the Florida's elective share statute. So instead of, if you decide to leave your wife a little less or your husband a little less because you think I need to give more to the children, and they can say, oh, that's nice, but I'll take an elective share under the statute, which gives me more. And so that's something to consider as well. Now that's talking about wills and the benefits of having a will. Whether you have a will or not, what we call testate means that you have a will. Intestate means you died and you did not have a will. Everyone has to go through probate. So what is probate? It's a court-supervised administration of a decedent's estate. It is a process created by state law to transfer assets from the decedent's name to his or her beneficiaries. A personal representative is appointed to handle the estate administration. The probate process ensures that creditors, taxes, and expenses are paid before distribution of the estate to the beneficiaries. And so if you understand that, it just means you have to give notice to creditors, you have to give notice to do a notice of administration, you have to put that into the paper for it to run through 2 cycles, you have to go through this whole process. You have to make sure taxes and expenses are paid out of the estate before it's distributed to the beneficiaries. And so it can be a long while, before any beneficiaries receive anything. Certainly there can be interim distributions if the court approves it, but this is one of the reasons why a will is so important. All right. So the personal representative is accountable to the court as well as to the estate beneficiaries for his or her actions during administration. And so this is probate rule 5.03. It specifies that every guardian and every personal representative, unless the personal representative remains the sole interested person, shall be represented by an attorney admitted to practice in Florida. So what that means is that every probate, in this case, requires an attorney. So the personal representative or whoever will become that, usually it's the petitioner, they have to hire an attorney for the probate process. More money, all right? Here's the types of probate. You have formal administration, ancillary disposition, summary administration, disposition of personal property without administration. And these are based on what the assets are in the estate. Not inclusive of the homestead, if you will. So summary administration is a shortened form of probate that does not require the appointment of a personal representative. We just call it a PR. Usually requires less time, effort, and expense than the formal administration. So there's 2 ways that you can qualify for summary administration. Either the decedent must have been dead for more than 2 years. And so if someone's been dead for more than 2 years, usually your creditors have the ability to go and find out whether or not, I can still go after you, if you will, for my debt. Or the value in the entire estate, less the value of the property exempt from claims of creditors, like your homestead, must not exceed $75,000. And so that is a quicker way to get a case done there, but you have to allege that there's no known creditors as well, and the creditors have 2 years to come back against that summary administration, and so it may not be the best case scenario to make sure no one can come after you after the fact, after you receive benefits, etc. So. Formal administration is most common form of probate. If an estate does not qualify for summary administration, it must be formally administered. Even if formal administration is not strictly required, it may still be the best choice of Florida probate proceeding for the same reason I just told you, that creditors can come back and collaterally attack your estate. In formal administration, there's close court supervision, collection and distribution of the decedent's assets. The process unfolds in 3 stages: the opening of the estate, the administration of the estate, and then the closing of the estate. And so the ancillary administration is just when someone who is not a resident of the state of Florida has property in Florida and has to have it probated as well. The decedent must have been domiciled in Duval County at the time of death. I mean, this is for Jacksonville, if you will. You must provide a death certificate, a funeral receipt showing all expenses have been fully paid, a copy of the most currently available bank statement or other document concerning the assets in question. If the funeral bill has not been paid, the court will release the funds directly to the funeral home. And so that's for disposition of personal property without administration. That's maybe the quickest way. It's rarely utilized because most people don't fall into those categories. Probate intestate succession. So if you die without a will, which none of you will because you're here today, all right? Under intestate succession, who gets what depends on whether or not you have living children, parents, or other close relatives when you die. So here's a quick overview. If you die with children but no spouse, the children inherit everything. If you die with a spouse but no descendants, the spouse inherits everything. If you die with a spouse and descendants from you, and the spouse has no other descendants, the spouse inherits everything. That means you don't have a blended family at all, or extra kids from here and there, all right? If you have a spouse and descendants from you and the spouse has descendants from other relationship, the spouse inherits half of your intestate property. Your descendants inherit one half of your intestate property. So if you die with a spouse and descendants from you and someone other than that spouse, same thing. Then if you have parents but no spouse or descendants, the parents inherit everything. If you have siblings but no spouse, descendants, or parents, then the siblings inherit everything. So that's how it goes. It goes to the children first, and then from the children it goes to the parents, from the parents to the siblings. So that's the way that intestate succession works. So let's move on to power of attorney. Power of attorney. What is a power of attorney? It is a legal document executed by a person called a principal. So you would be the principal if you're filling out a power of attorney. And it gives another person who's going to act on your behalf, called an agent, the ability to act on your behalf. Sometimes called a durable power of attorney, it gives unlimited or plenary powers to the principal, from the principal to the agent. It means whatever I can do, you can do on my behalf. What is it used for? It's used for incapacity planning. So when someone is unable to manage their own affairs, the agent can step into their shoes. For example, the agent can access the principal's bank accounts, sell the principal's real estate, or take other actions to pay for the principal's care. And so in order for a power of attorney, that's great responsibility that's been given. That's great latitude being given to another person. We need to make sure that you're not able to easily forge this kind of document. And so you have to have two witnesses and a notary present to do so. All right. You note that a photocopy or electronic copy of a power of attorney instrument has the same effect as the original document. Let me step back right here on this point because I don't believe I have it on the Will's PowerPoint, probably because I cut the trust part off of it. But when you sign a will, you have to do it in the presence of two witnesses, disinterested witnesses, and then also have a notary present as well. And they have to be present at the same time in the same place watching you execute it, able to observe you and whether or not you're of sound mind and all of those other things that it spoke to. You're not under duress or anything like that, because sometimes people are under duress, forced to sign documents that they don't want to. And then what happens is the notary will also do what we call self-prove it. And so that means that they will take an affidavit of the actual witnesses as well. It makes it much easier. And I'll just tell you on that note, I had a client come in. It was a former family law client who who needed some documents for her father. She wanted to get his will done and wanted to get his power of attorney done. And so we did it. I told, I know he's sickly or he has whatever issues going on, but he has to come in. So, so we can have the witnesses actually view the signature. And so did so, and we did it. And then 16 days later, her father passed. 16 days later. Of course, she had other siblings who now the father has decided to give her, most or all, because she's been taking care of him, all of his inheritance. As a matter of fact, it was brother, I believe. He wanted to give it to his sister instead of all of the other siblings. Now they're upset. So what happens? They go and hire an attorney, a lawyer. So the lawyer starts calling and checking with the assistants in the office, the secretaries, and trying to see what the relationship is with me, the relationship is with, whether or not she had these issues. And they go to set up depositions and all that kind of stuff when it comes to the probate. So what happens is, when your will is done, you're able to only notice the people who are necessary parties, who are interested parties. Your siblings now are cut off because they're not necessary parties under the will. The will makes it very simple and streamlined. Otherwise, you have to give notice to all these people. Well, they contested it temporarily until they saw everything was done properly in accordance with law, and there was nothing for them to attack. And they went on their way because it was a waste of time. It was done properly. And so that self-proving will, because it proved itself, the affidavits of the witnesses proved up the will that was the intent of the testator when they did their will. Okay. So, power of attorney, springing power of attorney is no longer allowed. That's when you say, "Well, I want to do a power of attorney now," and when I am incapacitated, then it jumps into effect. Well, those are no longer allowed. I think after 2011. So. Co-agents, you can have it set up where two people can have the same powers at the same time to act on your behalf. That's a little dicey as well because, people may decide to do different things. And so it's like you have schizophrenia. You're doing one thing one time and another thing another time if they don't agree. Or you can have it so they both agree on it. In that case, it's probably best to independently give it to one person. But that's just my opinion. In the past, a concurrence of the majority of agents was required, but not anymore. And one of the reasons why it's important, because when you go to different institutions, you want to be sure, the institutions want to be sure that you have the authority that's granted there, and they don't want to have to sort through all of this mess between your two co-agents, So they're able to rely on this document as is. Duties that apply notwithstanding any contradictions, provisions to the mandatory duties in those power of attorneys. There are mandatory duties that agents have. Duties apply except as otherwise provided in the power of attorney, or default duties. So mandatory duties of an agent, you have to act, you can't act contrary to the principal's reasonable expectations. You got to act in good faith. You can't breach your fiduciary duty. There's a fiduciary duty to act on behalf of that person that you're agent for. You can't act in a manner that's contrary to the best interests of the principal. You can't attempt to you must attempt to preserve the principal's estate plan. You have to keep all records and receipts, disbursements, transactions made on behalf of the principal, and if applicable, create and maintain an accurate inventory each time the agent accesses the principal's safe deposit box. And so you can see that being an agent for somebody is not something you take willy-nilly, because you can get sued behind the same thing if it's determined that you are dissipating the assets of that person or doing something improper. So you have fiduciary duties there. And so the default duties provide the agent must act loyally, solely for the benefit of the principal. You have to act so that you don't create a conflict of interest between your ability to act impartially in the principal's best interest. So that's where you get the self-dealing, where people want to take and convert the property over to their use or their brother or sister's use, sell it to them on a discount and those kind of things. That's the kind of shady stuff that some folks start doing and brings more problems. You have to act with care, competence, and diligence, which ordinarily exercised by agents in similar circumstances. You can't go and put someone's money into a boondoggle for them to lose when it's reasonable for you to, like right now, it may be reasonable to pull your money out of your full, I can't say that. It may be reasonable as an agent to consult with a professional who will tell you whether or not you should do such things. All right, there we go. All right. So, and if applicable, cooperate with the principal's healthcare surrogate as necessary. What powers does the agent possess? They can only exercise the powers that are specifically granted in the power of attorney. So with durable power of attorneys, like the one that I think there is a sample that you'll be provided, you have to initial by each specific authority that you want to grant to that agent. And so the general provisions that has been outlawed as well. You have to specifically outline those authorities that you want them to do. And so, these are things that an agent can't do. You can't make an affidavit as to the knowledge of the principal party. You can't get inside their head to say exactly what they believe or think. You can't go and vote on their behalf, no matter how much you want your candidate to win. You can't execute a will for that person. And you exercise the powers and authorities granted to the principal as trustee or as court-appointed fiduciary. So if they were a principal or a trustee in a situation, you can't exercise those authorities by proxy, all right? Move forward here. So those are just about agent, and so I'll move past here. Go ahead, okay. And then, certainly gifts by agents, you want to make sure that you're practicing in conformity with federal law when it comes to federal gift tax. Exclusion in 2020 is $15,000 that you can give away, for that benefit for the donee. Okay, and so and then it's double for if you're doing it with your spouse as well. I'll move on to advanced health care directives. Determining your end from the beginning. If you remember the Terry Schiavo case, you remember mom and dad wanted to do something different than husband, and it was a 7-year battle. Went up to the Florida Supreme Court for a right to life, and she ended up those life-saving measures were taken away, and so they had to watch their daughter starve for 7 days and then die. And certainly that happens a lot with end of life care. And so sometimes it's palliative care. It's given just the medication so that you can make it through the pain. But you have to be able to decide who you want to handle your health care and how you want it handled in advance. And that's where designation of your health care surrogate comes in. So they're able to say exactly what you want done in that case scenario. And that's what a living will does here. It states who you want to be your health care surrogate. It states what you want to do if you're in end of life or you're in a persistent vegetative state or something of that effect. And it goes into effect when your physician determines you have one of those conditions and can no longer make your own health care decisions. And your living will also gives you the ability to express whether you want to do organ donations, all right? And so you don't have to, that is another document you'll be provided. You have no need to notarize that document, and to revoke it, you have to do it in writing. Final expense planning. The funeral costs can add up to a substantial amount. Many people like to have Florida final expense insurance to cover those costs. I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. The death proceeds can be used for funeral arrangements as well as to help pay for any debts that are left behind. And these are a list of some of those costs that come up when it's time for funeral planning. Most people don't know until they get into that boat and realize they go and sit in the funeral home and say, oh my goodness, this is a lot of money. And then start thinking about, well, I don't believe in cremation, but I guess I got to do it because I can't afford anything else otherwise. And so that is it. Thank you very much for your time.
We'll have an opportunity to ask him personal questions at the end when we'll have the open Q&A section. I know it was a lot of information, but like I said, it would take us 2 days to go over all of what we want to give you this morning. So we're going to take a quick break, but before that, we're going to give you a few gifts. If you will open your package at your table, and if you look at that handout, that blue handout that goes over something, on the back page there should be a star. If you have this, no, that one, hold it up, Miss Slater. That blue page in your package, that blue little section, on the last page, if you have a star, there should be 2 stars. Well, I mean, we have 2 that we're giving away. So there's one star in there, but 2 people should have it. Do you not have it? There's a blank package on your table. Feel free to open it up. And if nobody got it, I get it. Does anybody have a star? Linda, nobody has a star. Huh? There are red stars, a red star on that last page at the bottom. I said, yeah, if it's empty on your table, feel free to grab the empty folder. Does nobody have them? Maybe they're all at our table, Linda. Okay, well, we keep those certificates. We keep them. There's a big question mark on that page. That last page has a big question mark on it. That page should have a star on 2 people's paper. Okay, so take your bathroom break or get some water, because next up will be, you took too long, so no. Come on up, Linda got a gift certificate for you. Nobody else has one? That was 2. There should be one over in this section. It's the last chance we're giving you guys, because we got to move on. If you don't have it. Okay, also, Linda, did you note that those who had gift certificates before, they need to turn them in? No. If you got a gift certificate at the last workshop and it has not been, you have not tried to use it, you've not activated it with an American Express gift certificate, you need to see Linda, because they made a mistake at American Express. They didn't activate the card, so when you try to use it, it's not going to work. So you need to. It was a Visa card. It was a Visa card, but the company didn't activate them. So you need to see Linda so you can get a new card. That was if you won last time, okay? All right, so we will take a quick 3-minute break. No, we don't want to get too far behind, so take a few minutes break, and we'll be right back. And Mr. St. Fleur will talk about life insurance, health insurance, all these other type of insurances that you need. You know where the restroom is, Peter? Restrooms are right in the hallway, everybody, just right outside the doors. Lay hands on you. And I've been a member for a long time. Well, you know what we believe and what we teach. You should have had the proper things in place. All right. So, Brother JC, he'll be right up. And Pat made a comment just here, because we do. We'll get people who'll come to us in times of crisis, and certainly we're here to help people with their basic needs. But we're not here to help you bury your uncle, your aunt. The church is not designed to do that. Again, the Bible says that if a person doesn't provide, a man in particular does not provide for his household, his family, the Bible describes him as an infidel, short of being a heathen. And so it's not the church's responsibility to do that. That's your responsibility to do that. Okay? All right. So JC's going to talk to us about various insurance products.
Thank you. Thank you, lady. Good morning. How y'all doing? So first of all, I hope you guys are not overwhelmed with all the information so far, right? Y'all taking like copious notes, like you're like detailed all the way, and like you'll be able to answer every question that he just put up here, right? Okay, all right. So, Aaron, if you can help me out with that screen as well, that'd be great. First and foremost, my name is JC St. Fleur. I think everybody here knows or seen me floating around somewhere. I came in thinking that I was going to be overdressed, and I feel like I'm underdressed now. Compared to the panel, so that's okay. So love me anyways. Is that okay? All right. So I'm going to give you guys some information. Some of it I'm going to go through very fast. Some of it I'm going to take detailed time on. And again, obviously, we'll be here to answer questions. I'll be around, be floating around, so please don't hesitate to stop us and ask questions. Fair enough? Okay, and by the way, I'm that interactive speaker, so I will be pulling on you. Okay? So let's talk about this a little bit. So we're talking about life, talk about insurance. Here we go. And so I'm going to start off basically talking about understanding what it means to protect your family. My clicker is, Aaron, help me out. Are we there? Are we there? Are we there yet? We're not there yet. Here we go. All right, so, not going, keep going, keep going. There we go. We're going to put all that up there once so we can get through it real quickly. All right, okay. So we're talking about protecting your family financially. You know, a lady mentioned it earlier that bottom line is this. You have a responsibility to make sure your house is taken care of. Does that make sense? The Bible says that if you don't take care of your own, that you are worse than an infidel, which basically means that you're worse than an unbeliever. Okay, so I like to talk to a lot of men. I wish there was more men in the room for a reason, because we have that responsibility to be the priest, the prophet, the protector, and the provider of our homes. Amen? And so a lot of times what happens is this. We say I do. Y'all got that. So I believe, and this is me speaking, okay? Apostle Paul says I speak as the oracles of God, and then I speak as a man. I believe that if you say you're going to take care of her, that even if you're not there, she should be taken care of. I'm not going to profess to be the best husband in the world, but I like to think I'm pretty good at it. I'm not going to profess to be the best father in the world, but I like to think I'm pretty good at it. Or I strive to be. And so I don't know how some other guy's going to take care of my wife if I'm not here. I don't know how some other guy who my daughter's not their child is going to take care of my daughter or my sons if I'm not here. Are you with me? And so it's important to make sure that if, God forbid, I don't make it home tonight, that my wife and kids are going to be okay financially. Okay? So with that being said, you've got to protect your house, protect your family financially. So I'm going to hit on some of those. So we're talking about auto and homeowners insurance. Of course, obviously, I use a vendor for those. Through a brokerage, but the bottom line is this: when it comes to auto and home, you got to know the details. Auto insurance is pretty clean cut, as long as you make sure you understand what your deductibles are, understand when they will not cover you. Okay, I had a situation where one little line cost me about $15,000 back when I was in college. Okay, so definitely you want to make sure you know the fine prints of exactly what's in your auto insurance policy. Homeowners insurance even more, because sometimes you think you may or may not need flood insurance, but did you know that even if you have flood insurance coverage, that there are certain impacts that flood insurance coverage still does not cover? Okay, certain water damages they still will not cover. So you need to make sure when you meet with whoever that agent is that's dealing with that stuff for you, that you know the fine prints of what's there. Let's not wait till that hurricane comes through or that major storm, and then now all of a sudden they say, oh, well, now it's a pre-existing condition or pre-existing situation. They're not covering. Everybody with me? Okay, so fast forwarding as it relates to health insurance. Of course, we know we have the marketplace, and everybody dives into the marketplace, but understand that marketplace coverage is only open during a certain period of time. Okay, it's just like on your job when there's open enrollment and you can't make no decisions after open enrollment until open enrollment again, or you have some situation happens. There's a limited time. I actually brought in a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, who specializes in, especially when it comes to Medicare, Medicaid, and for the elderly. That basically, as we go through the Q&A, if you have any questions specific in those areas, that he'll be able to assist and give some information on that. Okay, because we understand that's important. I mean, my dad now is 71. Okay, so guess what? When I was handling his stuff, I had him on the phone. Hey, I need details. Okay, does that make sense? I don't have to know everything. I just got to know who knows the information. Okay, so in terms of healthcare, you've got to make sure you understand the coverage. Now, healthcare, if you're working on a job, obviously you tend to get a lot of the perks because most companies will cover a good portion of your cost. All right, but still know what those deductibles are. What are those co-pays? What will they cover? What will they not cover? It's very important to make sure you know that. Don't wait till the emergency. If you're self-employed, okay, again, I work for myself, so I don't have the company paying for my expense. Well, I do it through my wife, so that kind of takes care of some of that. Okay, but basically, but in terms of that, outside of, say, you have a spouse who has a job where they're paying for it and you can be on their coverage, then that's when you need to make sure you have that marketplace coverage. Okay, and then be careful about this, because again, we're always looking for which plan I don't have to pay as much for. Hello? The phrase that you get what you, okay? So make sure you understand when you're saying, okay, well, this plan here I can get it and pay $0. This plan over here I got to get it and pay $90 a month, and you think it sounds great. In some cases, it may be $100, $200, $300, $400 a month that you may have to pay, but make sure you understand, okay, do a full comparison. I always like to talk about a T-bar. Okay, these are the pros and cons. These are the pros and cons. Let's look and make sure which one works best so we can make sure we're making a sound decision. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's do it. Aaron, help me out, please. There you go. All right, so real quick, one big thing I'm going to concentrate on. I'm sorry, wait, back up, sorry. Back up for me. Arrow back, because my thing here is on and off. Okay, long-term care, I'm going to cover that as well here on a bigger slide. How life works, I'll explain that, and of course, we're going to life insurance. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so as it relates to long-term care. Here we go. All right, so a couple of things. Put all this up here. Now, here's the thing. Long-term care, a lot of people have this misconception that long-term care is only when you become elderly. Do you understand that there could be life situations that can actually cause you to have a need for long-term care? Anybody who's in the medical field knows that sometimes you may have a child that basically needs the support of parents and health care throughout their entire lives. You may have somebody who had a tragic accident. Going back to, I like to tell stories, okay? Going back to when I was in high school, we had a young man that was, superstar athlete, phenomenal individual, future looked very bright, okay? And, where I grew up, through high school, basically, riding in a bed of a truck on the back dirt roads was not, unforeseen, it happened. Well, guess what? They're playing around late at night. Kid gets thrown from the back of the bed of a truck, and he becomes a paraplegic. Well, now somebody's got to be there. Somebody's got to come to the house. Or maybe as you start dealing with elderly parents or so on, you may know somebody that has to go into a nursing home, or somebody may have, to have a nurse come and take care of them, or, be in an assisted living facility and so on. So those things cost money. And one of the biggest mistakes that happen, put that back up there for me, one of the biggest things that happen is that you may have somebody who did everything right. We've talked about investments at the last workshop, and we're talking about insurance today, and you may have done everything you need to do. You had the assets set up right. You had all the plans set up properly. And if you did not have long-term care insurance, the expense can deplete your assets very quickly. And so you've got to make sure you prepare for it, okay? Typically, by the time you hit about age 40, if you were in great health and you didn't need it before, that's probably a good time to have it. So here's what it says up there. It's on the screen. I don't like to read slides word for word, so I will paraphrase. Okay, almost 70% of people basically turning age 65 will need long-term care at some point in their lives. 40% of people currently receiving long-term care are adults between ages 18 and 64. That did not say anything about retirement age. Long-term care is not just for older people. You may need long-term care at any age. And again, I've mentioned some of those things, like a car accident. You hear a 35-year-old getting a stroke. Somebody. My sister, about age 14, was already diagnosed with diabetes, and people were saying, okay, well, how is it possible for a child to have diabetes? So again, certain health conditions don't have an age on it. Okay, so you've got to make sure you're prepared. So stroke, I know a gentleman who's, at age 53, on December 6th, he was in perfect health, could probably get the best life insurance coverage that exists, cheapest ever because of his health. December 7th, he no longer qualified. And those things will keep you from being able to get life insurance as well, which I'll talk about as well. Fast forward. Will you need long-term care? And the answer is yes. You probably think that the odds are slim that you will ever need this type of care. So let's fast forward. It says over time, these are some of the risks that you'll face: car accident, having a residential fire situations. They're going to give you the ratios there. Being admitted to a critical care unit. It says 7 out of 10 people will need long-term care after age 65. And so the real question is, what's your plan? Is it important for us to keep looking into it? Okay. Just again, like I said, I'm zooming through some of this. Here you go. Okay. Long-term care isn't cheap, so be sure you have the right coverage. I'm trying to click through this quickly. This kind of gives you a quick idea. So home health aid, average about $20 an hour. And then, of course, if you're dealing with a vendor, you understand that there's overhead, so your $20 an hour just became $30 an hour. Anytime you're outsourcing something, understand there's probably going to be a markup. Okay, assisted living facilities, talking about roughly about $42,000 a year, and this is back in 2014 data on this one. And we know cost of living does what? Okay. Nursing home, private rooms. If you want a private room, you'll say, well, I want to make sure mama's taken care of. I want to make sure my dad's taken care of, and I want to give them the best. Yes, you will give them the best, but it will cost. So let's make sure we're planning for it. Okay. Okay, so talking about the benefits period, the length of time you can receive benefits after you file a claim. Say example, 2 years, 4 years for the rest of your life. So you got to make sure you know exactly what's in your policy and what they're covering. And then, by the way, also when does it kick in if the need is there? So because understand that there's some certain things may have a certain grace period tied to it before they can actually, they say they're going to pay, so be aware. Okay, elimination period, the number of days you can agree to pay before the policy begins, that you have to pay before the policy begins to actually start paying. Again, that we're talking about that period again. Daily benefits, the amount of money that the policy pays each day you need a nursing home care. I mean, sometimes you go into a hospital for one thing, and before you know it, it's like it started racking up because the one day became 2 days, 2 days became 3 days, and all of a sudden, guess what? Somebody's got to pay for that. And if they give you a Tylenol, guess what? Okay, all right, I don't need to say anymore. Okay, so again, these things are kind of covered already: assisted living, home health care, adult daycare. These services, can postpone or eliminate nursing home care, but the bottom line is that we understand they all cost money, right? Okay, so definitely need that. Help me out because I'm clicking 1,000 miles an hour. Okay, how does it work? Okay, basically it says how do you qualify for the benefits, and then of course these are some of the things. So it says if you need help with between 2 or more, I say, okay, 2 out of 5 of these, basically there's a need for that long-term care, whether if you need assistance in eating, dressing, toileting, continence, transferring in and out of the bed or chair, maybe some cognitive impairment. Bottom line is you need to make sure that you have some sort of coverage to assist you with paying for those expenses. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So fast forward. Now let's talk about life insurance a little bit. I'm going to go into very detail with, but yet try to keep it short and simple. Here we go. So people pay for a lot of things, and then you ask them, do they have any life insurance? And they say, huh? Or they say, oh yeah, I got $25,000. So if you are taking notes, I'm going to give you some things you might want to write down. Okay? Your life insurance is not designed to make anybody wealthy, although it can help. It's not, I'm originally from Haiti. I think most of y'all know that already. And a lot of Haitians have a tendency to say, I'm not going to get life insurance because my spouse might kill me. And so I have to teach them that there are protocols in place to make sure that if they killed you, that they don't get the money. Okay. So you think about it this way. Do we insure our cars? Put that back up there for me. Do we insure our cars? Which is a more of a liability than it is an asset. Right? I buy it for, say, $25,000, $30,000. The minute I drive it off the lot, it goes down about $5,000. Right? But yet I'm willing to pay $150, $200, $300 a month for it. Right? Do we pay for health insurance? Absolutely, right? Do we pay for homeowners insurance? Are all those items needed, necessary? So here's my question for you. Where does the money come from to pay for those things? Come on, talk to me. So what'd you say? Your job, right? You have to go to work, and what happens if you stop going to work? Right? So the bottom line is this: my income is what pays for the car insurance and the health insurance and the mortgage and the food and all those things, right? So sometimes we'll ask people, what's your most valuable asset? Put that up there for me. We'll ask people, we'll say, well, what's your most valuable asset? And they'll say the house. And don't get me wrong, the house can be an asset. But it may not necessarily be the most valuable. Because, see, if my income stops coming in, I don't make it home tonight, and I had no life insurance, then all of a sudden, guess what? My wife may have to give up the house. So was it really an asset? The most valuable asset is your ability to earn income. You can write that down. Your most valuable asset is your ability to earn income. So that's why having the insurances are in place. But if it comes to the extreme of one of us passing, I need to make sure that the house can keep functioning in my absence. So let's fast forward. So here's how life works. Now I will say this. Since this clicker's not really doing it, just go ahead and click that entire slide up there for me. I'll let you know when to stop. Keep going. Keep going, and I'll just explain it. Does the pointer work? Okay, perfect, good. Can y'all see this? Okay, good, all right, good. So I'm going to face back here in the catty corner with you guys. Is that okay? All right, so here's how life works, okay? There's a thing called the theory of decreasing responsibility, and it pretty much explains how life works. So life insurance, again, is needed, but you have to understand when is it needed. The whole concept that I need life insurance for my entire life is inaccurate. Because if I don't own a car, I don't need to buy auto insurance. Right? If I don't own a house, will I buy homeowners insurance? Absolutely not. Right? So the whole purpose of life insurance is to protect the income. So the minute that I have enough assets to take care of my income, life insurance becomes optional and not a need. Do you understand the difference? Okay, so here's how it works real quick. In the early years of my life, so we were talking about, and we're using this example of say, okay, hey, you have young kids, maybe you have some debt, some student loans, you have a mortgage, so on and so forth. If I have no life insurance, because those are a lot of responsibilities, and in the early years, I don't have a lot of money saved. I don't have $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in the 401k or the IRAs and so on, like we talked about investments a couple weeks ago, okay? Then if I pass away and there's no income, what happens to the family? The loss of income becomes what? Devastating. So in the early years, I'm going to rent someone else's wealth. Did y'all catch that? I'm going to rent someone else's wealth. But as I grow through life, using the concepts we talked about in the investment workshop, I'm going to start growing my own assets. Right? $200 a month over a 40-year period. If you do what the market has in the last 80 years, and please dismiss what's going on in the last few days. We're going to talk about that at a different time. That's not today's conversation. Okay? If the market does what it's done over the last 80 plus years, $200 a month over a 40-year period is about $1 million. So fast forward 30, 40 years, now I'm at retirement at 65, 67, 70. Bottom line is this, at retirement, here's what I know, my responsibilities would have decreased. Can we see that? The kids are grown and gone. I promise you, feed them, let them drink, let them go to sleep. If you did nothing else, they're going to grow up and become 18 and 19 and 20. Now, whether or not they stay, that's between you and them. Okay, or they might do like the whole boomerang thing. It's kind of like you send them off to college and you think they're gone and they come back like, mommy and daddy, we need to talk. Okay? But the bottom line is this. Here's the thing. They're going to be grown and gone. If you do what we've been teaching with the whole Code Red process, and please, please, please take full advantage of it, your debt should be lowered or paid off. If you do what we teach concerning debt freedom strategies, your mortgage should be paid off into about 20 years, 25 years. I mean, really 20 years or less, in my opinion, if you do it right. Hello? I mean, the whole concept that I can buy a $100,000 car and pay it off in 7 years, but I buy a $100,000 house and it takes me 30 years to pay it off, and then all of a sudden, basically, I'm paying $300,000 for a $100,000 house? Okay, I'm sorry. That's the next workshop. We're going to get into that, okay? All right. So watch this. So your mortgage should be paid off. So at retirement, and I want you tell me this. If I gave you a life insurance policy in one hand and I gave you a $20 bill in one hand, I send you to Walmart to buy some milk, which one do they want from you? The $20. So cash on hand is what they need. Does that make sense? So I'm going to rent somebody's wealth in the early years, and then I'm going to accumulate my own assets. Does that make sense? It's the concept of I'm going to rent your house until my house is built. So if I own my house, am I going to still keep paying rent? No, it's optional, right? It's optional. So now in the later years, I better make sure I have retirement money. So that's where the investment thing we talked about can come in. So the main thing is this: focus on financial freedom and learn how to eliminate the need for life insurance. Does that make sense? Now, of course, as you get older, if you did not have it before, I will tell you it's more expensive. The money that you thought you saved by not getting it in the early years, you're technically going to end up paying more of for less. I purchased my first life insurance policy when I was 29 years old. I'm 42. I'm not afraid to tell you that. I'm just saying. Okay? Now here's the thing. The same amount of coverage that I have right now for me, my wife, and my kids, and the amount that I pay now, if I tried to get the exact same coverage today, it would probably cost me almost 3 times as much. The younger you are, the healthier you are, the cheaper it is. Does that make sense? Okay, let's go. Quickly. Click next one for me. Okay, so here's the thing. Whenever you're buying life insurance, first and foremost, yes, you do get someone the job. That's what we call the group insurance, okay? So the group insurance is what I call the company car. What happens if you get a company car and you decide to leave? You better turn those keys back in. Okay, some will say you can take it with you. That's where Cobra kicks in, and it becomes so expensive because they were taking care of so much for it that basically you can't even keep it anymore. So what do? You let it go. Well, guess what? If you leave that job and now you're trying to buy your own coverage, and let's say health-wise and age-wise, now all of a sudden you don't qualify for it, or it's so expensive that you're like, well, forget it. It costs me too much. So you better make sure that and they call it supplemental. You guys know about health supplements. I know part of Code Red, we talk about health as well, right? So supplement has to be taken, in addition to food. So whatever they're giving you on the job for free, get it. And if you cannot afford more outside of and you want to increase that amount of coverage, get it. But there's a lot of fine prints with the one on the job, which we don't have time to get into today, that there are times when they themselves, you're on disability and you have to take time off, and guess what? At some point in time, some companies, it's not there. So there's more details that again, I'm fast forwarding, okay? Now, once you step outside of work, I'm going to paraphrase this real fast. There's only 2 types of life insurance. There is what they call term insurance, and then there's cash value. Now, some of you guys probably never heard it that way before. So cash value is a little tricky. I'm going to spend a lot of time on that. And by the way, let me just put this quick disclosure out there. I am a huge proponent of term insurance. I'm a huge advocate. And you'll see why in a second. Okay? So, cash value insurance is tricky. It's called whole life, universal life, permanent insurance. Index universal life, that's where the IUL comes in. VUL, variable universal life policies. There's what they call return of premium. That's a type of term that they try to, we'll get into that, okay? But bottom line is this, I'm gonna paraphrase by saying this: if anybody offers you life insurance until you can get money back from it, run. The other way. Did y'all catch that? I'll explain why, okay? Okay, so fast forward. So here's how it works. Okay, typically life cash value insurance is more expensive. You're paying for two things. So I'm gonna, for the sake of time, I'm gonna fast forward here. Term insurance is for a period of time. It's pure insurance. Okay, there's different types of it, and and you've got to know what is the end result of it. So you better make sure you know what's in your policy. If somebody tells me they have term insurance, I still want to review their policy, because not all term policies are created equal. So you better understand how it works. What happens if the term runs out and I decide I want more coverage? What happens? You need to know that. Does that make sense? Okay, click over for me, because this is. Okay, so real quick, it says this up here: almost half of all of the households would feel the impact from the loss of a primary wage earner in just 6 months, with 35% feeling the impact in months or less. The average life insurance coverage gap right now is about $495,000 per household. The gap, the shortfall, how much is needed that's not there. Okay, you guys heard of Dave Ramsey? You heard of Susie Orman? Okay, click on the next one for me, and I'll let them do that conversation, and I'll fast forward the rest. Fair enough? Okay, so let me give you an illustration, and we're going to get out of it. Perfect. I'm glad that you put that right up there for me. So here's how it works. When we're talking about cash value insurance, typically the way it's sold is this: you get less coverage for more money. Here's how it goes. Basically, they're going to give, so it's a scenario, they give $100,000 on the husband, $100,000 on the wife, nothing on the kids, but they're paying $225 a month. That's an illustration. You understand that's not everybody's situation. But what happens is this: they're going to tell you that, hey, whether if it's for college or for retirement, in this case they're talking retirement, if you, if at the end, by the time you turn 65, you'll have about $77,000 in assets accumulated. Sometimes it's pitched as a retirement program. Now, what they don't tell you is this: it's more expensive because your money is paying both for the insurance and for the investments. However, this is for dying, this is for living. You just married them in the same contract. The two became one. So in other words, I have to be dead for my family to get this, but I have to be alive in order to get this. Can you do that? So whenever you, and again, and by the way, don't take my word for it. Go to the bookstore, get books on basic finance. There's a book called Untitled Finance for Dummies. Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, Clark Howard, The Money Makeovers. Anybody who fights for the consumer will tell you never buy this. It is the worst financial product you can ever purchase. Separate the two. Why? Because when I get pure insurance, I can buy way more coverage for a lot less money. So same scenario, give $250,000 on the husband, $250,000 on the wife. And by the way, in your packet, there is a thing that shows you how to break down how much coverage you actually need based on income. So $250,000 of coverage is the basic amount for somebody making $25,000 a year. Okay, so same scenario, take that scenario there. So give them a 35-year term insurance policy, and basically they're paying about $80 a month. So we just saved them $145. Is that okay? More coverage for less money? So you just saved them. And so if they grew up thinking that whole life cash value was good, they're going to say, well, wait a minute, this one here has no savings, but mine's do. I could borrow from this. Yeah, I want you to follow that. Your money, you borrow it? Okay, ask me later, because I'm trying to speed up, okay? So separate the two. I get pure insurance, so insurance is insurance. Now I take that additional $145 that I just saved, go back to your 401k, put it into a Roth IRA, put it into an investment account, okay? But because they're separate, my $145, again, if I follow the market from the last 80 years, my $145 would have been about $265,000 by the time I'm 65. Is that a better option? Here's even the better of the better, okay? Because since they're separate, when I pass away, my wife would get both my insurance and my savings, not having to choose one over the other. Does that make sense? I'm a firm believer that if you're going to pay for two things, you should get both. Fair enough? Okay, so with that being said, here's the thing. Now I'm 65 years old. I'm still alive. So I needed $250,000. I have $265,000 in assets. So technically, life insurance is no longer a need. So if I choose to, I can stop and get one, instead of renewing, don't renew the policy. Now, if you want to, you can still do that, but it's optional again. Maybe you keep an extra $25,000. That's up to you. But the bottom line is this: if I take the money that I was spending on life insurance, click that over for me, and continue putting it towards my investments. So now my entire $225 now is going towards investments. I don't know. Y'all read that for me. It says the investment of the entire $225 in another 5 years is about $285,000 by age 70. If you needed $250,000, if you needed $25,000 a year to live, and now we have $280,000, almost $300,000, can we still survive? Can they take $15,000 and bury me and still be able to function? So I'm no longer paying somebody else. Does that make sense? So I'm going to cut it off right here. And basically these are, and you guys have this on your slides. This is just some extra notes for you to let you know exactly, what the experts are saying, what's out there in the books, in the marketplace, and everything else concerning what policies you should get. So that's my time. I'm moving out of the way, and we'll get a chance to do Q&As later. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
I told you there's so much information you can't get it all, so we're going to bring Peter up right quick, let him go over some disability and hospitalization, cancer insurance, and stuff like that. And then I will give these guys a couple of minutes for you to ask them questions, and then we're going to have to wrap up with Attorney Smith coming back up, and then everybody can ask general questions to him. Is that okay? Okay, all right, Peter. Yeah, bless you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. I am Peter Hager. Hi, good seeing you. I first want to thank, does this microphone work? I think I'll use this one. Okay. I first want to thank Lady for this. I want to also thank Miss Linda and Bishop. I think that this is fantastic. The Code Red is just an unbelievable thing. Every church needs to do it. So it really does. It's amazing. Great education, things that you need to know, and it's awesome. So what I'm going to talk to you about is supplemental insurance, okay? Now, a lot of people have different connotations on what supplemental insurance is. With Medicare, supplemental insurance, thank you. With Medicare, supplemental insurance pays two people. It pays the hospital and it pays the doctor. When you hand over your Medicare card, there are portions that Medicare do not cover, but the supplemental insurance for that will pay the doctor and the hospital. That's not what I'm going to talk to you about. I am going to talk to you about supplemental insurance that pays you. We don't pay the doctor, we don't pay the hospital, we pay you as a patient, we pay you as a policyholder. You use that money any way you want. If you want to use it for deductibles, great. Co-pays, great. I personally would rather you see you use it for rent, for car payments, for your bills, to make sure that you live like you're used to living. There's no, you want to keep living like you're living, okay? So the first, let me see, and I'm not familiar with this clicker, so the first policy I want to talk to you about is the accident policy. And also, I would like to see that too to make sure I follow along. And I'm sorry, I'm going to put my glasses on. I'm getting old here. Oh, my glasses are there. I apologize. Okay. So we have a statistic that 1 out of every 8 people will seek medical attention for injury. And this is not my statistics, this is according to the National Safety Council. Accidents, at least with the company that I represent, and I actually represent a couple of different ones, but Aflac being the biggest one, accidents are the highest rate of claims paid out. We pay out more claims for accident policies than any others. Accidents generally require follow-up visits. So you initially go to the doctor to get medical treatment for an accident, and with that, there's follow-up visits and loss of time from work. That's the main thing. That's the loss of time from work. So when you go to an accident, when you have an accident, that's money out of your pocket. Let me click this. Oops, back there. Sorry. Okay. An accident policy will help out with out-of-pocket expenses, medical expenses, and it'll cover you. You want to make sure you get a policy that covers you 24/7. That is on or off the job. You want to make sure you do that. Children injuries account for 35% of claims paid. Now, I know me, and I'm sure you, if your child has an accident, you want to be there to take them to get treatment to the emergency room for follow-ups and things like that. A lot of this time you have to take off time for work, and a lot of times the employer will dock you for that. If you take your kids to the doctor to get treatments, they will dock you for that. The money that we will pay you will help you in that situation. Like I say, parents are generally the ones that take the child to get the treatment. So again, there is a cost associated with that. Like I say, not just loss from your job, but gas, time, energy, and everything else. We want to make sure that you're compensated. The doctor and the hospital, they're going to be compensated with the health insurance. We want to make sure that you get compensated. Accidents on the job account for 38% of claims. The average time getting paid from workers' comp is 30 days. I don't know if anybody has ever had a workman's comp claim. But what happens is if you're out long enough, the great thing about it is it pays for all the medical treatments. So all the medical treatments are paid when you do a workman's comp claim. If you're out long enough, though, you're supposed to be getting an income from that. But here's the thing. You have to be out of work for 15 days. Now, it will once they approve it, it will revert back to income after 8 days. So it'll pay, you have to be out, they're not going to pay for the first 7 days. It'll revert back to day number 8. But the thing about it is, they have to do an investigation. The investigation is up to them. So on the average, it takes about 30 days to complete an investigation. So what that means to you is that's 45 days that you're not getting any money, that you're not getting a paycheck. The accident policy is beautiful in that because what it's going to do, it's going to pay you for your treatments. It's going to pay you probably, like I say, workman's comp's going to pay the medical bills. So this is just cash money that gets paid directly to you until they approve or disapprove that workman's comp claim, okay? So I think very important. Accidental death is a leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 34, according to the National Council on Safety. And thank you, JC, for bringing up life insurance. Very, very important. Typically, accident policies cover accidental death. So that's normally covered with an accidental policy. One injury in 12 results in loss of work time. That's disability. So 1 in 12. So if you have an accident, 1 in 12, you're going to miss work. So we're going to go to the disability. And I'm going to read this. According to the Council for Disability Awareness, 1 in 4 workers, that's huge, 1 in 4 workers will experience a period of disability before they retire. On top of that, 46% of Americans wouldn't be able to cover the $400 emergency expense. $400 is hard to come up with in some cases. That's why the accident, getting back to the accident policy, that's going to more than cover that. Without resorting to credit card, debt, or family loan. Now, it's not out of the realm of possibility. If a situation like that were to happen and I didn't have disability, I could put it on my credit cards. I could ask for a loan for my family, which I would hate to do because you don't know my family. But, but If you have disability, you don't have to worry about that because that will take care of your income. Disability insurance protects your income by replacing your income. So that's very, very important about the disability. Typically, and JC did a great job of explaining the elimination period. The elimination period, like he said, is when the benefit kicks in. And typically, the richest benefit with a disability policy is 07. The first number represents accident, the second number represents sickness. So if you're out of work due to an injury, there's 0 days you have to wait. It pays from day one. If you're out sick, you have to be out 7 calendar days, and then it starts paying on the 8th day. Not 7 work days, but 7 calendar days. So that's the richest benefit, and that's the one I typically show because most people, they don't want to go 2-3 weeks without a paycheck. So the 07 is the richest benefit, and that's the one that I present. Short-term disability, in my opinion, is valuable because, just to reiterate, it protects your income. So that's a short-term disability. Then we get into the long-term disability, and long-term disability, normally the elimination period on that typically is 3 to 6 months. So if you have long-term disability, then just know that you're not going to get a paycheck for 3 to 6 months. And going back to this, 82%. Now, statistically speaking, most people would really need short-term insurance instead of long-term insurance, and the reason is 2% of all disabilities, people are back to work within 90 days. We just had a client that actually was on the ski slope, got hit. Some guy was going 50 miles an hour down the slope, slammed into him. He had a brain injury. He had several broken bones. He was in the hospital for 6 weeks. He was in intensive care for 7 days, but guess what? That's happened in late December. He's already back to work. So typically speaking, statistically speaking, people are out of work 90 days or less. Long-term disability is fantastic, and if you can afford it, that's great. But if I had to decide what I personally would do, short-term a little outweighs the long-term disability in most cases. But keep in mind there are 2 types of long-term disability. There's called the own occupation disability insurance and the any occupation disability insurance. Own occupation disability insurance is disability insurance that covers specifically what you do. For example, if a surgeon started getting hand tremors, he could not really perform surgery. So if he started lecturing as a job, he would still get paid disability because he can't do his own vocation. He could not do surgery. On the other hand, any occupation, if that same surgeon had hand tremors, but he could flip burgers at McDonald's, it would not pay anything. So the own disability, a little bit more expensive, but it's going to cover the vocation. So just keep in mind, if you're looking at disability, you want to make sure of the difference between the two. Okay? Any questions on? I guess we'll have questions later. Next policy we want to talk about is, oops, can you go back to the cancer? Or can I? Okay, the cancer policy. I just want to take just a quick vote. How many people here know somebody, whether family, friends, whatever, has ever battled cancer? I just want a show of hands. Look around the room. Very, very prevalent disease. You see on the slide here, you don't see on the slide there, but next, oops. Okay, according to the American Cancer Society statistic, 1 out of every 3 women women will be diagnosed with cancer. 1 out of every 2 men will be diagnosed with cancer. Again, that's not my statistics, that's not the insurance statistics, that's the American Cancer Society. With those kinds of odds, with those kinds of percentages, I think it's very, very smart to at least look at a cancer policy. And cancer treatments can be devastating. Like I said, they can be devastating physically, but they can be devastating financially. As great as health insurance is out there, there's some things that just are not covered by a cancer policy. The big thing, travel. If you have to go get radiation and chemo, now they're going to pay the doctor, but they're not going to pay you to go get that done. So, I mean, there are just so many costs that people really don't think about. And talking about Dave Ramsey, I love Dave Ramsey. I think he's great. I think he's wonderful. I follow him. But he does say that he doesn't think a cancer policy would be a good fit. But guess what? Dave Ramsey's worth $55 million, okay? So, so if he had a great cancer treatment in Los Angeles, California, for example, well, let's get back to somebody specifically, Rush Limbaugh. Everybody knows Rush, right? Everybody heard that he just got lung cancer. He has been, I read that he is being treated at Sloan Kettering in New York. He gets on his private plane twice a week to go up and get treatment from Sloan Kettering. Now, I wouldn't be able to afford to do that. Most people aren't afforded, but wouldn't you want the same care? With our cancer policy, or with any cancer policy, you want to make sure that it has a travel benefit in there. And that'll allow you to go to whatever cancer treatment center that you see fit. We want you, the cancer policy lets you treat the cancer the way you want to treat it. And I think that's very important. It's freedom. It's the freedom to choose, and that's huge. Yes. All right. Let's see, the hospital policy. There is a hospital policy out there. Now, I like this statistics. Hospital policies obviously help with major medical expenses not covered by the major medical. It can prevent high deductibles, out-of-pocket expenses, and things like that. We understand that. It covers ICU, doctor visits, surgeries, whether it's inpatient or outpatient, really any medical treatment that you receive. A hospital policy, provided it's the right hospital policy, will cover both inpatient and outpatient benefits. Okay? Now, I think that this is very, very important. A Harvard study has shown that 1 out of every 6 people will file bankruptcy in their lifetime. That's huge, 1 out of every 6. 72% of those will be caused by medical expenses. Out of those, now think about this, out of 72% that will file bankruptcy had health insurance. So that's huge. You think health insurance is going to cover everything. It doesn't. 68% of the 72% that filed bankruptcy did have health insurance. So that's why the beauty of supplemental insurance is so important. Finally, we're going to the critical care policy. Critical care policy is very much like the cancer policy, except it covers heart attack, stroke, kidney failure, what I like to call the catastrophic illnesses. Fact number one out of about every 34 seconds, an American suffers a heart attack. Fact 2, about every 40 seconds, an American has a stroke. Those are huge, scary statistics. And I'm telling you, catastrophic illnesses like that can wipe out somebody's financial situation. Wouldn't it be smart for literally pennies on the dollar $5, $6, $7 a week to make sure that if a situation like that were to happen, that you would be fully covered, that you wouldn't have to worry about your out-of-pocket expenses, and you can continue the lifestyle that you're used to. I think it's important. My name is Peter Hager again. I have the phone number up here, and I guess we're going to questions. Yeah.
Coming up. JC and Attorney Smith, we're going to have open mic question and answers right now. And we're going to first begin with just the health and the supplemental insurance, and we're going to save the will and testaments for last. But he's going to be up here, but he's not going to answer right now. I don't want you mixing it up. There'll be too much confusion. Because you guys, there was so much information, you'll be saying, now what is he talking about now? Wait a minute, what that got to do with my will? So we're going to separate them. So if anybody, first of all, has any questions for either one of these two guys, JC and Peter, if you have any questions for them, I'm going to swap up and give you guys this mic. You got another mic for me? They got it. Okay, so
you go
that one there and then I'll
Lady, here you go. Lady, you can take that one and then she'll bring that on.
Okay, give that to them on the stage, and we've got a question for one of the insurance guys.
This is for Peter.
Yes.
There's so many different plans, policies. How do you make them go all together? It's like you got to get individual policies for cancer, for hospital, for this, for that.
Right.
How do you group them all together?
Right. And as Lady Narlene said earlier, this really is my passion. It really is my passion. I don't want to sell products just to sell products. So what we really like to do is see what's important to you. You may have had a relative dealing with cancer and you saw what they went through. So that might be something of importance to you. You might have had somebody or experience with an accident that you had. I always say, whatever your gut feeling tells you, because I agree with you. I would not buy, even though I have them, but I sell it, but I would not buy all policies right off the bat. It sounds great until you get your paycheck or until you until you see it come out of your bank account. So I would say maybe stick to one or two that is very, very important to you and go with that. So rely on your own gut as far as I'm concerned.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Bishop. If you had to prioritize between critical care and cancer, would you? I guess the question is, do you need both? I think
The two leading causes of death in America are cancer and heart disease. So those would be two that I would really look at. Those are two that I would really look at because with the statistics, that would probably be my first look. Great question.
Anybody else?
This message is for JC. So you talked about life insurance. My question for you is, I think you spoke about a benefit period. So there's a certain period of time before the life insurance actually comes into effect. So if something happens in that time period, is the insurance just null and void at that time? It will not pay out at all?
No, actually, that statement was where it's talking about the long-term care and making sure you know when does it kick in, and I think Mr. Hager kind of touched on that even concerning disability. Mm-hmm. Now, as it relates to the life insurance, which is a good question, you need to make sure you know how does the policy work again. So, case in point, a lot of policies will give you what they call conditional coverage. So for example, if I give you a life insurance policy today, the conditional coverage says that because you've answered all the questions correctly, in other words, based on how you answered the questions, I believe we're going to cover you. Then in that case, you would have that conditional coverage, which means if I walk out your door today and God forbid something happens, we're going to pay provided that everything was in line. And of course, they have a limit on how much will they pay for that, no more than $500,000. It doesn't mean you're officially approved yet. It just means that since we had already agreed, then we will take care of you. Now, there are some policies, and this more so happens in terms of final expense, or whenever you guys hear those commercials about no medical questions and no physicals and, we'll cover you right away type thing. A lot of them have what they call a 3-year or 2-year grace period. Okay, and so which means that if something was to happen within those first 2 or 3 years, most companies will refund you your premium, but they will not cover that, pay out those benefits. So that's why I always say it's important to know exactly what's in that policy. And if you have a question, let me know and I'll look at it for you. You're welcome.
Now you're going to get that second question right there.
Oh, okay.
I am.
My question, what is a good time if you had whole life insurance to switch from whole life to term?
Okay, so first off, rule of thumb, do not cancel one policy until you approve for the new one. I'm sorry? Okay, we'll come to that. So here's the thing, do not cancel one until you get the other one approved. But the bottom line is this, number one, get it reviewed. Once you get it reviewed, in my opinion, it should have been changed like yesterday. Okay, because that means you've been overpaying. If I did the math for you and actually showed you, similar to that illustration, but I can show you on your own. Bottom line is you've been overpaying all this time, and you probably would have been self-insured already had you done it the other way already. Okay, and if you have both, some companies will give you both because of the fact that that's their way of trying to keep you in that whole life. Okay, they'll give you both. They'll give you a small amount of whole life, and you're paying a ton of amount of money for it, and they'll give you an additional term where you're paying a little money, and that's their way of keeping you in there. And the reality of it is that you shouldn't have both. If you become self-insured, then you don't need it. And then that's the part that's the real conversation, the real focus is, I've got to retire one day. And if I have enough assets, then it eliminates the need for life insurance. Get with a financial advisor that can help you with that properly.
All right, this question is for Peter. For the critical care policy, I'm seeing that, is there like a prerequisite you need to have medical first before you can add the supplemental? And if so, with kidney failure as one of the catastrophic illnesses that occur, is it possible to have a critical care policy outside of a medical or the regular prerequisite for medical insurance or policies as well?
And I'm going to say with most supplemental insurances, you do not need health insurance. You do not, in order to purchase it, you do not need health insurance. We have folks on Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, and then we have some folks that don't have any health insurance whatsoever. So it is not needed. It's recommended if you can afford health insurance, but I know that's very expensive. But if you cannot afford health insurance, I at least say get something. So you do not have to have medical insurance in order to purchase any of the supplemental insurance.
Hello, this question is for Peter. About the cancer plans, I know we can't predict when we'll have medical situations arise, but when is a good age bracket, I guess, that men and women should start considering it?
Well, I've paid claims on, I hate to say it, but I've paid claims on 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. But the age is from 18 to 70 when you can purchase it. If you purchase it before, or if you purchase it at 70, you can keep it for life. After 70, you can't sign up for it. So I don't really have a good answer on that because I've seen so many cancer diagnoses for children all the way up to age 70. You might not like that answer, but that's what I found.
My question is for living wills and wills, are they required to be recorded at the courthouse? I've done my own, Attorney Smith, and are they required to be recorded at the courthouse?
That was later on, but we're gonna not answer that question right now, Pat, because it's gonna be last. We got
Okay.
something in between there right now. We're doing a review right now. Okay.
All right. Back to Wayne.
This one I think is going to be for you, JC. Long-term care insurance. So I purchased that through my husband's job, but what I find with that is every year it goes up. And it's continuing to go up. Relatively inexpensive now, but do you have any pearls of wisdom as to how that can be managed?
Most insurances, especially as it relates to long-term care or life, tend to go up, I guess, with age. And so, other than making sure that your assets are doing what they need to do, because we know cost of living is going to increase on everything else anyways, it's not a way to really just say, okay, let's cap it off and this is where it's going to stop at. So, in short, other than growing your assets and making sure you have something to offset it, I don't really have another recommendation for that one. Yes, ma'am.
We'll take one more question on the insurance side, and then we're gonna skip the wheels, but we're gonna jump right in between there.
Insurance question.
Okay, I have one more question for Peter for critical care.
Yes.
Oh, here I am, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Me again.
very good,
Okay.
yes.
So for someone with a pre-existing condition with, like, let's say renal failure or renal failure or kidney existence, what would be the procedure to enforce a critical care policy?
And that's a great question. Pre-existing conditions, because these are individually underwritten, it's a very real concern. With the critical care, if somebody has had renal failure, they have to wait 5 years. It's a 5-year wait, and then they can get on the policy. Cancer, the same thing, 5 years, unless it's breast cancer, and then it's 2 years. So that's a good question. And also, I just want to speak in about the price, and I'm just going to say this real quick. Typically, with supplemental insurance, the rates do not ever go up. Whatever age you get in, you keep that rate forever.
Okay, all right, thank you guys so very much. Again, they're gonna be hanging around at the end, so if y'all want to kind of grab them, you can ask them more questions. But we want to give away a few gifts, and then Attorney Smith has a special gift he's gonna give to someone today, but anyway, not right now, but when he's gonna take over now. So if you registered first, who was the first to register today that came in today? Who showed up first today over there, Angel? She over there, who's over there? Donna? Miss Linda Butler. Miss Linda Butler, we have a gift certificate for you. Linda Holmes has that for you. And then secondly, it pays to be on time, right? It pays to be on time. Is anybody in here older than 75? 75? Anybody older than 70? I want to give it to the oldest person. Who's over 70? You're over 70. You're over 70. You're over 70. Okay, 70, 74? 70. How old are you? 70. How old are you? 70. 72? 74 months. You'll be 70. And I know Miss what's her name is 70 also. So is 72 have it? Anybody over 72? All right, 72 has it. It pays to be old. There are a few benefits to age, it really is, it really is. But again, there's so much information that's been given today. Again, like I said, they can't answer all the questions specifically, but you'll have them for a few minutes. But now we want to switch over to the wills and the probate and all of that other important stuff, the directives and all that kind of stuff that you need to have information about. Again, as a church, I get to talk with, counsel, pray for so many family members who are so distraught because there was no will, or there was no directive, or they were given a directive at the last minute, or the power of attorney to, sign their documents at the last minute, and now the family's not speaking, and half of them supposed to be saved. And literally, I get all kinds of stuff that goes on. So you may think it's not going to happen in your family, and you will be amazed at what death brings out of people. All kinds of stuff. And so this is very important. So we want you to really be open to asking the questions you might have for him. So, attorney, you have something I believe you want to let them know you're going to give to them, and then we're going to get into your questions. Okay. Or you don't? You just want to get into your questions? I think you'll need to do that.
Yeah, we'll get to the questions.
Okay.
All right. First.
All right.
Sister Pat's question.
Oh, Pat's question was first. I'm so sorry. Pat had the first question. We're so sorry. We're not ignoring you.
My question was, are wills required to be recorded at the courthouse? I've done my own, and are living wills as well?
They're not required to be filed with the court, no. You can, should you choose to. They don't become, I think, public until there's a death of the testator. So, but you don't have to file it with the court. You can file it or with the clerk's office. You can file it with, you can leave it with, like I said, your attorney. You can leave it with your next of kin, whoever you've called to be your beneficiary, your personal representative. You can leave it with them. Or you can leave it in a private place or space where you would keep your effects. Some people leave it in their safe deposit box or in their own safes, but wherever you leave it is somewhere where it can be found by your next of kin to be utilized at that time. Yes, so if you're talking about recording, that's one thing. Just having it on hand so it can be utilized, if you will, particularly the living will and the advanced healthcare directives with the person who you've made your healthcare surrogate designate.
Okay. All right. Broderick has a question over here.
If I already have a will drawn up, do I have to have it modified by an attorney?
If you've already had a will drawn up, do you have to have it modified by an attorney? No.
If I want to change it?
No. If you change it, you don't need an attorney to do a will, although it's advisable to have someone on the hook. And that's one of the reasons why, as far as legal liability, I gave the disclaimer at first. This is not legal advice. This is, informational purposes. Doesn't establish a legal relationship between you and I. That whole thing is because certain responsibilities is like you get what you pay for. So if you go and you pay for a professional to know what they're doing in that particular area, then they are now responsible on the hook for it. So we have something called malpractice as well, legal malpractice, where you give advice that's not in your wheelhouse, not in your area. Someone is hurt by it, harmed by it. You can be sued as well. An attorney can be sued. And that's the reason why, I gave those disclaimers, because my primary area of practice is in family law and personal injury. But I'm kind of a jack of all trades, if you will. I've worked in several different areas. This is the reason why I can present on this area competently.
Okay, the reason I asked is because, again, I did have an attorney to draw it up, but I do need to make some modifications to it.
Okay. Well, many times it's advisable to go ahead and go back to an attorney. I always tell someone, if it's something that an area that a professional user is required in, to go to one, unless you just cannot afford one, and that's the only time you probably should be armchairing it yourself, because you don't know all of the legal body of work, the probate code and the case law that goes into the background of it and how it impacts your personal situation. And so when it comes to simple wills, it's easier. You have less of an issue there. But when it comes to more more specific specifications that get into the weeds, it will open trap doors that you or your beneficiary can fall in, and your testamentary intent is not carried out. And so you want to make sure you're doing a will that will be carried out. It is your will that you want to be done.
Right here.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Kind of a two-part question. First of all, with the POA, does the POA die? Power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
With the power of attorney, does it die when the person dies? Is there any part of the POA remain in effect after the person dies? And is a last will and testament better than a POA?
Okay. The POA, or the power of attorney, and the last will and testament are for two specific purposes. A power of attorney is for someone else to handle those particular issues that you have signed off on while you are alive, whether you are incapacitated or not. You know, you can sign a power of attorney right now that it gives someone the right to go and handle something on your behalf, even if you're of sound body and mind and don't have any issues. Most people do it for when they are unable to. But at the time that you pass, at the time of your death, that power of attorney becomes of null effect, because it flows out of your ability to act, and you can no longer act when you're not alive. However, as a testator in a last will and testament, you are saying what you want to happen after your death, after the death of a testator, is when your last will and testament takes force. Your last will has no effect at all while you're alive and while you're living. It is when you die that it takes effect. And so if you had someone who's your power of attorney and they're handling all your business and you pass, they're in a lurch now because they can't handle anything else for you. And so it becomes a handoff from power of attorney to the will, that whoever you make your executor, your personal representative, they now have the ability to do so after they go and probate your will. They deposit your will into the court with the probate and are issued what we call letters of administration. Those letters of administration, many financial institutions require that it's certified, that they're able to take to the bank or any other institution and say, I have the authority to handle all matters on behalf of the estate of the testator. Okay.
Let me ask you a general question right quick, because I read somewhere and I wanted to research it before I got here. I had read that the Internal Revenue Service does not accept power of attorneys in some states, in some instances or whatever, that the IRS doesn't care, that they don't accept those. Is that correct?
I can't answer that. I'm not sure if I have to research that first to get back to you on it.
I meant to research at the time, and I ran over that a year or so ago. And
I would say that I don't believe that that's correct. I'll just tell you, I don't believe that's correct. The reason being that we generally, in particular, I do give my CPA the ability to handle things on behalf of myself, my firm, with the IRS, and so we do a power of attorney. It may be that there's, I think, a 4454 is a form in particular that you have to sign off on to give them the ability to handle all of your business on your behalf.
It was on the Susie Orman site that I got the information, because I did my will and stuff through the Susie Orman program years ago.
Okay.
And it was on that site. She said in some instances the IRS did not accept certain.
And that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That certain instances they may not accept a power of attorney that you just drafted up yourself, but there's a particular form that they have that you're able to give someone the ability to handle things on your behalf. So it becomes their own specific form for a power of attorney.
Oh, okay.
With them, with the IRS.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Again, I'm not speaking on behalf of the IRS, lady. 16-year veteran with the IRS. We will accept the power of attorney, and it's like it's been explained. It gives someone to act on your behalf before us,
right,
in your stead. Okay? So we have two forms,
right.
2848, power of attorney, and an 8821.
Those are the forms, okay.
It's a legal document to give you access to your information, but not to act on your behalf.
Right.
The 2848 gives an individual to act as you before us. And again, it ends at death. There is another form we use after death that can allow someone to act on your behalf, fiduciary filing form 56. A lot of people don't know to get that on their family member after death to act before us. Because if you call us after death, we won't talk to you.
That's right.
So would you recommend that in general, and we know this, so would you recommend that people get these forms in preparatory like these other documents that we need to get? Would you recommend, even in the power of attorney situation, say say your spouse died, and you know your spouse has some money out there with the IRS, or whatever, but you don't have a power of attorney form yet with the IRS. So, can you now get that form, or you have to get this other death form?
It's, again, like Mr. Smith said, if the spouse is dead, the surviving spouse now becomes the individual until she's dead. She can act on my behalf, filing as surviving spouse.
But what is it? If there's a surviving power of attorney, they already left someone else as a power of attorney, giving them power of attorney. Who? You got to go to court. Okay. Ready. Praise God. So if y'all spouse got some money out there, you better file it now.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
The question I have for you is, you stated that I'm here, right here.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yes. That to do a will, the testator, to do the will, that you would need 2 witnesses and a notary.
That's correct.
And you said to, feel that you're in sound mind. My question is that, will this still, once this occurs, do some legal ramifications have to be occurred after death, or will that makes it solid and it goes through, or what the situation may be on that?
So, you mean does it take effect immediately?
Yes. Can you execute it then? Would it be executed, or does it have to go through another channel after that?
No. That does it. So after it's executed, at that time, it becomes a valid, as long as it's a valid document. It's a valid document at that time.
So who will read that? Would it be probate, or will it be like your attorney if you have one, or who takes over that?
So what happens is, I'll just give you the case that I handled. So afterwards, what I did was, as a matter of fact, I passed it to someone else because I knew it may come up as an issue. I passed it to someone else. So they'll get your will, they'll get your death certificate, they'll file maybe an oath of PR, oath of personal representative, and they'll pay like a $401 filing fee. They'll file notice of administration if it's going to be. They'll file all those documents with the court, and for any notice that needs to be filed, notice of administration will go to each one of those interested parties. Or what most likely happens is we'll contact those interested parties, which are beneficiaries, and ask about waivers. This is if it's intestate. If you have your will, then we won't have to contact them to ask about personal representative, because the court will already know based on the will, that's self-proving, that you're able to be appointed. File all that with the court, set an ex parte date, that means without any other party, go in before the judge, show them the will, show them the death certificate, and read through it and verify that you are the party in interest who will be the personal representative, and they give letters of administration to you. Sign off on the order appointing personal representative and the letters of administration that gives you the ability to go and do those things. So as far as the will is concerned, it doesn't have force and effect until you die. But on a practical side, it's valid from the time that you sign off on it. It's like any contract, when you sign off on it, you've given it weight, but the force of it comes when you die.
Okay.
That's the contingency in the will.
And that's what we're trying to do for you guys through this whole thing. We're not recommending you don't go to a lawyer. We're just saying that you don't have to. You can write it on a piece of toilet paper. Is that not correct?
That's
correct. You can handwrite it on a piece of toilet paper.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it is notarized and witnessed, it becomes a legal document. And so
I wouldn't advise you to do so.
Well, we don't advise you to do that.
To each his own.
Especially because toilet paper is in high demand right now. So no. So we do recommend that it's typed and all that kind of stuff.
There's a couple of questions here.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Where's the
In
other
the middle,
mic person?
these two.
Uh,
Oh, you have a mic here. Okay, great.
Attorney Smith, my question for you is can you please explain the process on when creditors decide to come in and place a claim against the state? And just to go a little bit further, let's say the decedent did have a will and left property maybe to loved ones.
I'm sorry, but my wife just texted me. She was FaceTiming and texting at the same time.
So can you please explain the process? Let's say the decedent did have a will, left certain properties to loved ones. Okay, can you explain the process on when creditors come in and place, let's say, claims against the decedent's estate?
Okay. So what happens is after the process I just explained to the gentleman here, you file that with the court. The other thing you have to do is file a notice to creditors. I think it has to be, you have to send it to all known creditors. So if you know of those creditors, you have to send the notice to creditors to them and tell them that there's a notice of administration that's going on in this court at this time. And if you have any debt that you want to claim, you have to put a claim in within 30 days. So they have 30 days to do it. And you also need to do a general notice to creditors, notice of administration that goes out into to a local publication. Here it goes to the Daily Record, and then the creditors will have their time to file a claim. So whether it's hospital bills and things like that, debtors, they'll file their claim in the court with the court, and then at that time you can file and your attorney, usually the personal representative, will file an exception to the claim or file some kind of contest to it, and that's when negotiations kind of ensue because there's a statutory framework for who gets paid out first before the beneficiaries do. And when you go down that framework, sometimes those creditors will end up falling off anyway. Or sometimes you already have certain statutory exemptions with cars, with your homestead, things like that, that will prevent them from being able to come after it anyway. And so, many times they see it's futile and will settle for pennies on a dollar. And so that's how that whole process works. But you can see why it's important to do a will, because it takes so much time going through that process that you can be tied up in probate for years, particularly when it's when it's contentious litigation amongst the beneficiaries, amongst the creditors and that kind of thing. So, all right, you're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
If a person dies without a will and they have children, is it the responsibility of the oldest child to take over, or that's when probate starts? Because maybe he has like 5 or 6 kids.
Okay.
And the oldest, now I've heard this, I don't know if it's true or not, that it's the oldest responsibility to take over everything or to be in charge. Is that true or false?
So I think what you're asking is who would be the personal representative, who would be over the state? Anybody can first file the petition. Anybody can file a petition for administration of an estate. Most people don't want to file it because they have to pay the money to do so and have an attorney to do so. And so usually it will be the person who knows they're going to be in charge of it, yes, ma'am, or they would be the petitioner. That person who wants to be the personal representative, usually what they have to do is talk to the beneficiaries. So the beneficiaries of the estate, if there's a majority of them that decide they want this particular person to be the PR and they otherwise qualify, then they're the one that the court will appoint if the majority of the beneficiaries agree on it. And it goes by first the spouse, the decedent's spouse, and then a majority of those folks, and then it goes down from there. So no, it's not necessarily the oldest gets to do it. It doesn't even have to be a family member that does probates the estate. But of course, all of those statutes come into play, and if I'm a disinterested party or a third party, I'm not going to go and file a petition for administration and pay the money, have an attorney to do that when I know that I won't be the personal representative, or there's other folks who are in line first to get that, is, throwing good money after bad.
It's usually the most responsible one that has a little money that ends up doing it.
There you go.
Anyway, so we're going to ask just 2 more questions, because I know some of you have to go.
This young lady in the
and
back.
if you leave, you're going to miss what attorney was going to give you. But also, we're going to just, like I said, 2 more questions, and they don't have all day.
Okay. Seen her hand up here.
So,
There's another right here. I think it's.
I got one.
You have someone over there? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
My son passed a few months ago. 2 children.
Sorry to hear that. Yes, ma'am.
So I've been trying to handle his affairs. And I was trying to liquidate everything, for the purpose of the children. So I've been told, okay, of course they are his heirs, so they, are first in line. However, the thing is, they said that whoever the guardian is of the children would have to be the one in charge to do that. The thing is, he was awarded sole full custody of his son prior to his death. So, I mean, he's deceased now. The child is with his mother now, but so how do I?
Right, and maybe we can talk offline, but in general, I'll say when there are children who are left, they're beneficiaries of an estate, and that person that died was was awarded sole parental responsibility or sole custody of the child, minor children, then it has to go through the guardianship courts. It's the best place to go, through the guardianship court, and they can determine. They can do emergency guardianship. They as long as you notice the other parties, particularly the other parent, even if that parent had their rights reduced or have supervised visitation or whatever the case may be, it still has to go through guardianship for the court to award that person to be the guardian over their person and property. Okay.
All right. One last question. This is it. This is it.
Back here back here.
There's one right here and one right here. Did you have it first?
Yes, I have a question. I'm trying to attain power of attorney for my mother who has dementia, but she refuse. Do I need to go to court to get documentation, like medical documentation, in order to attain?
Yeah, so just like I was saying earlier during the presentation, if that person has temporary lucidity and they execute it and the witnesses are able to attest to that, then that's the easiest way for it to happen. And if she has dementia and she's not of sound mind and that, then you have to go through guardianship court and be awarded the guardianship. And what they usually do is take you through a process where you have to have the medical providers actually, opine as to her having this illness that prevents her from doing, and they'll go down the list and check off all the things she can't do, and then they'll go and award the guardian the ability to do all of those things that needs to be done on her behalf. And so that goes through guardianship court as well. It's not just for minors, it's also for adults as well.
Okay. All right. We're going to have to wrap it up because I have to be somewhere as well as 1 o'clock, and I know they have to be as well. But you'll have his information, you have his card. But he did want to give
I did
something.
want to recognize that she had a hand up for the past.
Okay, but
20 minutes.
that's it. Okay, so the rest of y'all hire an attorney.
All right,
hire
Mama.
him if you want one. So.
All right.
My question is, can you tell me the difference between a will and a trust?
Okay, the difference between a will and a trust, they're both vehicles. They do different things. A will, I've already explained that to you. It is a document that names a personal representative and talks about how you want your all of your property distributed and who you want it distributed to. A trust is a document or a legal vehicle that appoints a trustee or someone to act on your behalf to carry out the same plan on behalf of beneficiaries. And it has certain, it can be revocable or irrevocable, meaning, it can be, it can be put in place so that you cannot withdraw it after you do so, or you can change it during your lifetime. And it's called an inter vivos trust, during your life trust. And with a trust, it becomes better, because it's better, when you certainly have assets and things like that, that you have it in a trust, because you don't have to go through the probate process as much, and you don't have to deal with all the things over there, because it goes right into the trust and it's already managed. It can be managed during your life and after you pass. So that becomes, and so that's the reason why we have what we call pour over wills, that will just pour all the assets out of the estate right into the trust and continue to be managed as it was during your lifetime. So that's the benefit of a trust.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, attorney, you had something you want to offer this morning?
I do. I want to certainly whenever you meet with an attorney, we have what's called consultations, and those consultations, I charge in-office consultation $300 for you to come and meet with me and discuss your case. I primarily handle family law and personal injury law. That's anything with child custody, child support, any of those things, even injunction for protection against domestic violence. On the other side, personal injury, I handle wrongful death, that's shooting cases, and any medical malpractice, slip and fall, car accident cases, all those type of things. I handle those on that side. So I know that there are those of you who have questions about wills, and certainly I can talk to you about those. But I wanted to award to two people a free consultation on any legal issue for you to come in the office and speak to me about that. And so the first will be the first person who asked me a question. Who was that? Who was the first question? Sister Pat? Sister Pat?
Amen.
Okay, all right. So I want to award you this. This is
free consultation. Amen.
For a free consultation.
We like free stuff.
And I love the word of God. He says that the last should be first and the first should be last, but the last now, the person who asked me a question here. Yes, ma'am, you come.
Amen. Amen. All right. So we
thank
thank
you for your
God
time.
for his service. Thank God for his pro bono service today. And so, and for Peter and JC. So now you got in your email your information that today, if anybody you don't even have that many assets, but you want to do a basic will. We have a basic standard will and a basic durable health. I think it's a health directive we have today, Linda, or maybe it's a general power of attorney. Forms, these are legal documents that I purchased the Sue the Orman package, like I said, years ago, and so these are forms that her organization has drafted up pretty much. I changed it a little bit because you can change it if you want to. So I changed it to suit me and my family and all of that. But anyway, and you have the option as well as changing them. Like he said today, you can change your will to whatever you want to put on there. You can leave it to your dog. A lot of rich people leave their stuff to their animals, all that kind of stuff. But if you wanted to do that today, Linda Holmes and some others will be staying back to do that for you. But if you want to later on say, well, I want to look at the forms and see if I want to do my own, you will need to sign up and give us, or let us know. You already signed up. Let us know, sign a list, and then we will email you the documents, okay? We have notaries setting up. They're already over there. These people are already notaries, and they can sign them for you. We have witnesses, all that kind of stuff. So if any of you came today saying, hey, yeah, I don't have many assets, I don't have this convoluted family and all this kind of stuff, I just need a basic will. We're here to do that for you today, okay? Otherwise, you can consult professional help and other attorneys or whoever. Again, with the insurance, and Peter, we thank God for you. Again, Peter's been working with us for about 12 years. JC, you already know him. He serves back here in our youth ministry. So again, we thank God for you. Keep growing, keep learning. There's so much research on the internet. Crown Financial has a lot of free resources out there for your finances and making wills and all that kind of stuff. So be resourceful. You go online, ask questions, okay? All right, so we're going to close out. Bishop, did you have something to say?
No, I just want to thank everybody that, at a time like this, your willingness to want to care for personally yourself and for your family, and for you to be thinking about your children's children, and to think legacy, and to think about what you would leave, what predicament you would leave your descendants in if you're not properly covered insurance-wise, and you haven't left a will, testament, or trust, so that there would be no real discrepancies when you're dead and gone, you know. And people always say rest in peace. It's kind of hard to rest in peace when the family's fighting, you know. And I'm dealing with a situation right now where a former member of our church who lives in down South Florida, mother died, and she had 3 brothers that she hadn't seen in 7 years. And the mother left her as the administrator of the trust, and she's now trying to determine to follow the leading of her mother, her will and testament. And this one gets this one gets that, this one gets this. And now they're saying, well, I did this for mama, I did that for mama, I'm getting who you think you are. And she is legally who she is. And she's a tough lady. So she has cussed them all out. And in the name of the Lord. And but she has handled it, and she's referring, she's calling us for counsel. And she's calling me, the office here, and I counsel her to how to deal with them. My wife says she deals with stuff every day. I deal with a lot of stuff also. And in my counsel, she has since been sowing into the ministry every month. She started back giving and just sowing back into the ministry, simply because of the counsel, and simply because of the comfort that my counsel in particular has given her in how to deal with her siblings. So, you know, if you heard what they said today, adhere to it. You have further questions, continue to ask. Those of you that have the pro bono visitation doctorate, hold on to those and use them. Use them at the highest best use. And then now, after the consultation, there is a fee. So I will let you know that. Am I right about it?
That's a retainer, yes.
That's a retainer. These 3 guys, they know I love them. My heart's with them. Stephen just so happens to be my cousin. And man, he married my cousin. And so he thinks he's in the family. And it wasn't until I went to the family reunion and he was there, I was like, he legit. When you come to the family, especially where we were down in the country, he was there. And so he is family. He's also, of course, you've probably heard, the pastor of a local church here, and meets with me every week for 2 hours a week, even for to further his understanding of pastoral ministry and his knowledge of the scriptures. And you might hear him, as he mentioned, the death of the testator. Of course, Hebrews talks about no testament is enforced until the death of the testator. Some of you heard those scriptures and stuff. You go like, oh, that's from the Bible. But he is a preacher. He's guilty of being a preacher, and I'm thankful for him. So I want to say bye to everybody. We're going to conclude here. Remember what I said about it in the morning. I'm being very practical. I'm being very prayerful. And Glenn and I have been talking. We just don't understand how, you know, there'll be some people, because of the fear, are going to run to the house of God for prayer. They're going to be coming to say, I need Jesus right now. And then if the people who claim to know Jesus aren't even here, they're going to be like, well, I thought they trusted God around here. And so we have to do those things we know how to do. And that's a simple illustration of a need to just, like we're today gathering, and we know each other. And Glenn was just talking, he said, well, how many people in here was in Italy last week in the hood? You know, I went to a Nesbitt last night, and I got, ate at Nesbitt, and, went to check Mr. Nesbitt's hand. I mean, what's the chances of me contacting from Mr. Nesbitt on Edgewood Avenue B? I'm just saying, who ain't been nowhere. We're family, and that's being around your family. We're family, right? But I will say this in closing. Anybody been to Nesbitt? In the Nesbitt, you have a glass container, right? In Nesbitt, there's the Schlitz Malt Liquor Bull, there's the Schlitz, the aluminum can, there's the Michelob, there are the Heinekens, there are the Coronas. All of this stuff is in you can see it in the thing, right? So you go to the cooler, you look over there, and the Michelob bottles had a mask on next to the Coronas.
I saw where it was going.
Right next to the Corona. So I thought and wasn't nobody ordering a Corona last night. They were doing the Slit Small Liquor Bull. They had the lids in the can. All right. Don't fret yourself. Take all the precautions you know that you need to do, but don't fret yourself. Let's not live in fear. Let's live in faith. And if somebody comes looking for God tomorrow, and they come to the worship, and you're supposed to be volunteering and working and serving, and you're not even there to accept them, he said they'll come from the north, the south, the east, to the west. In times like these, our doors have got to be open, because my house shall be called the house of prayer for all people. And the president and the White House has declared tomorrow a national day of prayer. And I put a post up just a little while ago. Actually, every time we gather, there should be national prayers prayed for our nation, because we're the house of prayer for all nations, for all people, all right? All ethnos, all right? Italy, be prayed for tomorrow. China will be prayed for tomorrow. All of Europe, be prayed for tomorrow. Sub-Saharan Africa is having little to any effect of this corona. It's their summer season, it's warm, things are going on there. The only cases they have are people who had been in China and different places who came back, and they're just this and that. But I just believe they just reported that this is a sweep type of disease also, like influenza and some of the other things, that when the spring comes in, it's kind of swept out by the change of the weather. And everybody's pretty much in consensus that that's the kind of thing that'll happen. That's why you're hearing people saying 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. That's why they pumped $1 trillion into the economy. That's why they're putting more money in the economy. They're trying to keep the stock market, keep you at peace there, because the stock market is going to turn around. It's going to come back up. Activity is going to happen. The airlines back, all of this stuff. We've been here before, been here in different derivations before in the past, economically, health-wise, and all these things, and we survive. And I conclude with that one comment that I concluded with on Wednesday night in a message that's been played all over, and it's simply, a child of God is indestructible until God is done with them. All right? It's indestructible until God is done with it. So don't panic, don't fear. If I'm here, you know, and if the leader's afraid and fearful, and then you can expect fear and people to be afraid that follow them. I am not afraid, all right? All right, the fear of death is gone, all right? So, Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this time. Thank you for these speakers. Thank you for their information, their impartation. Thank you for the impact now that they've had on the lives of your people. Thank you for the people that are sitting here who understand what was going on, who added themselves insight and information that would help somebody. And Father, we thank you. And we pray not only for us, but for our children's children. We pray for legacy. And we pray, God, that we'll be able to experience life, that our children will be able to experience life, that our grandchildren will be able to experience life as you have purposed it, abundant life. And we thank you for it, and we appreciate you for this day. And we pray even for tomorrow that your people around the world will call on you and you will answer. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Amen.